Good evening.
Good evening. Hello.
How are you today?
Doing good. A little bit hot.
It is so hot. Those are cool earrings you have on.
Thank you. Let me see, we have Greg joining us today.
Yeah, I'm so glad he's back on.
Yeah.
Hi, Greg. How are you doing? He might have stepped away.
How you guys doing?
Doing well, thanks. The summer's zipping by.
Yeah, it is. It is. We just got back from Deer Valley on Friday.
Oh, that's wonderful. How was
Yeah.
the trip?
Good, good, good. Did you have any chance of getting on the, did they call you at all? Because there was a lot of people there were a lot of empty cabins.
They didn't call us, but we are scheduled to go for one of the family weekends early October.
Yeah.
So we're looking forward to that. I think the weather will be nice and when it's a little cooler anyway.
I think once you go, your kids are not going to allow you. I'm going to readjust this camera a little bit. Anyway, once you go, your kids are not going to allow you to not go back.
Well, hopefully they'll have a spot next time. I'll have to. Yeah.
So, well, let me know. Let me know when you're going. I'll give you any pointers that I know. So.
Sure. Yeah. I think it's like October 3rd weekend or something.
Yeah. Hold up.
Did you have a nice trip though?
Yeah.
Nice to get away, unplug.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, we had a good time. Things are a little different than usual. Before you'd eat in a big dining hall and stuff, but because of COVID now, you have to go down and get your food and then take it back to your cabin or take it anywhere you want.
Mm-hmm.
Eat, so
you don't get that congregation aspect, but
no,
at least you're still getting fed and get to enjoy the scenery.
Yeah. So.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, it's good. It was I've been like out of touch really with so much stuff between the end of the summer and now. I'm just starting now that vacation's over and a lot of the other things have settled down. I'm starting to get back into the normal routine, which I'm not sure I like.
Glad to see you.
It's hard to go back to a normal routine.
It is. It sucks.
Vacation is pretty nice.
Yeah.
Vacation.
Yeah. So anyway, Kristen, I thought I saw you. I forget where it was. And I went to run up and say hi, but then I was like, nope. If that's not her, man, you're going to make a big mistake. So I backed off, but I can't remember where it was at. I don't know if it was, did you go to any of the Crafton performing arts things?
I haven't made it there yet. We've been on vacation too, so I've missed them.
Okay.
So you didn't see me there.
Okay.
You might at the next ones.
Okay. So I made the right decision. So, but anyway, I'm just going to sit in the background, listen to your meeting. I'll probably shut off my camera and everything, but stay tuned in. So anyway, I see James Mangan also joined. So
out of curiosity, did you either of you guys put your names in the hat for the Parks Master Plan Steering Committee?
As far as I know, both of us did.
Okay.
Yeah. We haven't heard anything back.
Really?
I don't know. Yeah, okay. I don't know if. I mean, they only wanted them by the 16th, and I don't even know if anybody got together because I think council. The last I heard, so while my mother was sick, I used to sit with her all night long. So I never had a chance to get on meetings, but then I would listen to your recordings through the meetings. And so my mother, I know that I think there was a proposal to not have a July meeting for council. I don't know if that went through or not. So anyway, so maybe they didn't even meet yet, but I know they wanted our letters of interest by the 16th. So, and Colton and Kirsten, I'm sorry, I'll get back to you on the eco district stuff and the Brick Street stuff and all that other stuff. It's just
no worries. We're going to talk a little about that tonight, actually.
Okay. Yeah, it's been it's just been, I haven't had a chance to. So, but anyway, we'll listen in and I'll try to get my feet back under me here. So.
Can I jump in for a second real quick? I sorry, I was missing the link. Was there something that I could have answered about a council question?
So not to put anything on pause, but we might just want to wait until we are officially on the record. Or I mean, you can go ahead and answer it now. We'll maybe should circle back to that. We were talking about the Parks Master Plan. It is on our agenda. We want to make sure that's on the record.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. We can wait, whatever's excuse me, whatever's easier. I missed the beginning of it and I just heard something about July council meetings.
The question was just, have the stakeholders been appointed yet? I mean, we can go ahead and answer it now since it's being requested. We should probably repeat it when we're on after we call to order.
Sure. Yes, I can actually answer that. Let me just find the exact paperwork. Give me 1 second. I do have the answer to that though.
And it is 6:32, but we're still waiting for one person. So we'll just wait another minute or two. So you have time to address that, Colton?
Okay, yes. So the members that were appointed to the Parks and Recreation Master Site Plan Steering Committee are Mike Crown and Brad Kraus from Council. From Planning Commission was Kirsten and Eric. The Rec Board was Jacqueline Labasser and Elizabeth Palmer. And residents were Greg Wozniak, Kevin Slug, I'm gonna butcher the last name, Slogick. And then James Mangan, Gerald Luxbacher, and Liz Glowwork as well as residents. And that was all approved, and they were appointed to the steering committee in the last council meeting, which was last Thursday.
Oh, you guys had a meeting, because I remember in June, I listened to the June meeting and you guys were considering not having a July meeting. So I guess you did have a July meeting then. Okay.
Yeah, so I actually missed the first July meeting. I was out of town and wasn't able to get online, but they did have both July meetings.
Oh, okay.
And this was approved in the last meeting, which was last Thursday.
All right, cool. Well, that's good.
Yes, congratulations and thank you for doing it as well while we're on it.
Yeah, well, I think me and James, I don't want to speak for James, but I think we've hit the road running on this a little bit, and we have great interest. So you got a lot of energy here. So
absolutely, and I was glad to see your names on there for sure.
So fantastic.
All right, well, I think we have, it's great to see that we've got some people joining us tonight. We're missing one of our planning commissioners. So we'll see if he joins us later, but I think we should go ahead and call to order. For the sake of the recording, we're already recording, but for the sake of our minutes, let's go ahead and call to order. 6:35. We'll do roll call. So Kirsten Compitello, I am here. Richard Kramer, we're waiting on, but on to Lydia Herring.
Herring's here.
Colton Chandler.
Here.
And Eric Valchef.
Here.
I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that we can see. Wait, is this letting me share? Here we go. Go ahead and share my screen so we'll share the agenda for tonight. Can you guys all see the agenda?
Yep.
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 And before we continue, since Rich isn't here, do we have someone willing to take notes?
I'm willing.
So that we're not hearing me type.
I just take notes into the document. I mean, it seems a very efficient way of doing it. They want to post that?
I can do it into the document. Or if you prefer to, that's fine.
No, I just think that we all can pitch in.
I just have to figure out how to minimize the.
Right, so if you both are willing to take some notes in the document, that satisfies our minutes keeping. So we'll move on to citizen comments, and we do have a few people on the line. So before we continue further, Greg and James, if either of you would like to unmute and share any comments you have at the beginning here. We have comments at the end as well, but feel free to unmute and speak up now.
This is Greg. I have no comments.
All right, well, we will proceed for now. The next item on our agenda for tonight, we have a couple of just updates that we were going to start with. The first is the zoning status update. Last month, we talked about how this is delayed. It will continue to be delayed for a short bit because although we have a consultant selected and we have agreement between Crafton and Ingram to pursue a zoning on both ends with the joint overlay for the shopping district area between the two. We did put in for a grant and we didn't get that grant. That was from several months ago. We found out that we didn't get the grant from DCED, but we are favored. We are well positioned to get it in the next round. We lost out on that grant mostly because there were so many flood concerns from other communities and more pressing issues during the era of COVID. But we are well positioned to qualify for that grant. And so we have a reasonable expectation that we will get it in the next round. So the decision was made to wait on pursuing the zoning until the next grant cycle goes through. So that'll be in the fall.
I wrote down fall. Is that, I was just going to say, is that correct?
In the fall.
Fall-ish?
In the fall. Mhm.
Okay.
So at our last meeting, we discussed that it had been informally talked about with the consultant that they were willing to hold their price until fall. And we as a planning commission recommended that we get that in writing. The borough manager did go ahead and get that in writing from the consultant, which is EPD. So we have a letter where they've put that in writing that's been shared with all of you. Unless there are any questions, that's probably all we need to state. Unless there are any questions tonight, that we know that they have agreed to put it in writing that they're holding that price through the end of 2021.
That was the attachment in the email, right? They were basically saying that, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they submitted a letter to the borough manager stating that they were willing to hold that price through December of 2021. Lydia, you were also looking into starting to just share some questions to get some conversation going with Ingram about what we might like to kind of get some internal community momentum going before the project officially kicks off. I know that hasn't officially started yet, but did you have anything you wanted to share or talk about tonight?
I'm not sure if there were questions. I think it was more of issuing some pamphlets or little flyers that kind of discuss the benefits of updating both Crafton and Ingram's zoning initiative or zoning ordinances. Mm-hmm. So I was able to put some ideas together and send them over to Greg, but haven't had a chance to actually to talk with him about the ideas. But if we have a little time today, I could list some of them and see if anybody has new ideas or thinks any of these are, flat out wrong, that kind of thing.
I think that's worth talking about today. We had a bit of a short meeting last month with a few people who were out of town or unavailable.
Okay. So
the idea had been, sorry, just a little cap there, because the idea had been that we would, since this is a bit delayed, to just start to get some pamphlets or flyers out to the community to get a little bit of community awareness of what will be coming and what it is, why it matters. That was what Lydia was going to get started.
Exactly. So I had modernize old code, align code with community vision, add transit-oriented zoning districts to promote busway usage, walkability, reduce automobile dependence and congestion, revisit parking minimums so that new developments are not required to build more parking than they need. And for example, we could cite the Crafton Ingram Shopping Center parking lot. Encourage desirable development that benefits our citizens and local economy. Conventional zoning practice of the past several decades has separated residential, retail, and office uses. Today, however, this zoning stands in the way of communities that want to create vibrant, walkable neighborhoods that mix these uses and give residents the options to walk to the store, walk to work, or own a home business. Make the zoning codes clearer so that potential developers can easily understand and follow the rules. And incorporate design guidelines, which are a set of standards that aim to maintain a certain level of quality and architectural or historic character, addressing features such as building facades, public spaces, and landscaping. So those were just some ideas I was able to kind of come up with. I didn't get Greg's feedback. If anybody else has other ideas or wants to reword some of this, I could share my screen if you want to be able to read them instead of just remembering.
So help me understand. This would be for a workshop?
These are ideas to basically put on some sort of either flyer or blast out in Facebook or what have you with some images and graphics to kind of explain to the public ahead of potentially redoing our zoning ordinance why revising our zoning ordinance matters and why it's a good idea. Basically promoting this project ahead of it starting.
One of the other things we touched on last month was the fact that there are some surrounding communities that have updated their zoning recently. Dormont is one that has gotten a lot of really positive press. So it's been ultimately a good, it's gotten them a lot of positive attention and praise. And it would be good for us to look into that a little bit and understand what they did and why, and think about whether that's appropriate for Crafton and how we would communicate that to the community. I think, just speaking for myself, the list that Lydia got started is really good, but we'll also need to really work through, if the goal is to present that to the community to explain what the benefits are, we'll need to really work through making it clear how those things are benefits, or better explaining what they are. I could see some of those being potentially more confusing than not if they're not fully explained. People are, things like parking minimums can be difficult, can be kind of controversial. Mm-hmm. So it's important to make it clear what we anticipate the zoning would do and what the zoning won't do, because it won't be over. Zoning is a legal document, so it wouldn't be overreaching. And it would have to be rigorously, reviewed from a legal standpoint to make sure that it was
right. And we have to present it. Sorry to interrupt, but we have to present it as these are possibilities. Mm-hmm. There's no guarantee that any of this stuff gets in because it's subject to the consultant, the steering committee, and the council and the legal review.
I think that would be one to add. So actually, as part of so I'm gonna let you go next, but one point to make is that when this does start, public engagement and outreach is required. It's a part of the scope, and so we'll just be giving people advance notice that this is going to be starting, and they will have a chance to participate.
So I'm kind of slow on this. So help me understand if I'm not quite, just bludgeon me if I'm not following along. Okay. So what I'm not getting is these would be the topics for educating the public on the need for zoning, or what zoning encompasses, right?
Yeah, it's basically saying, hey, Crafton, redoing our zoning code could do this, this, and this for us.
It touches on these areas, right? Okay. And that was a really comprehensive list, and there's probably more things. It sounds like you guys put a lot of time in June at the meeting on, that list. I'm sure it's pretty comprehensive, but let's just say there's probably one or two things that somebody else might want to throw into it, but it's probably a pretty comprehensive bucket is what I'm saying. Right?
And we don't have to explain all these in one flyer. Like these could be little tidbits.
Right. Yeah.
Almost
That's where I'm kind of, I'm agreeing. I'm kind of going along with this, saying, well, we've done these workshops in the past where it's sit and get, you know what I mean? We've had good participation, especially some of the more heated items, people have shown up. What if we did one that wasn't sit and get, where we took that list and we came up with, together, we came up with a working definition or explainer for each of those. And then out of that, I do one pages all day long. I'm more than happy to work with all of you, any of you, or just do it, where we take that and distill it down into a one pager. And that would then go into the next Crafton Community Bulletin or whatever the heck it's called, right? It'll go to the next newsletter, it's a one pager, right? But in terms of, the collaboration around defining what those things are and really, synthesizing and through lines and all of the consulting speak in the world, in terms of kind of gathering people's thoughts on what those things mean, and then kind of, pulling it through in terms of, plain English Waffle House speak. That'd be I think that'd be a nice open session for us to do. If nobody shows up, well, nobody shows up, but I think we'll get the usual suspects and maybe some more. Invite counsel, right? To kind of define what those things are, and then pull that together as a little one page that, there may not be money in the coffers to mail it out to every household in the town, but it could certainly go into the next newsletter.
I kind of see, go ahead.
No, I had nothing more to say. I just think it's a great list. Can you paste that?
Sure. Let me do that right now, and then everybody can see it.
So Eric, let's talk about this, because I can kind of see where you're going with wanting to work it up more and then have it be an open session, but I also don't want us to overlap with the work that the consultant is going to do. Because first of all, they are paid to do it and we aren't. And second of all, if we're doing it and they're not, or if we're doing it, but they're also supposed to do it, are people going to know the difference? Are they going to give us their feedback and then be less inclined to show up for the consultant? And they're the ones who are really going to listen to that and put it into the zoning code. We can give them whatever we come up with from our workshops, but they're going to focus. We can't compel them to focus on that more than what they get in their sessions. So I would just be a little concerned about trying to do too much that overlaps with what they are going to do, because we want people to participate with the consultant.
Allow me to clarify what I'm saying is, when I hear modernizing old code, right? I'm a software developer and I think of things much differently when I hear that phrase. But it readily applies, modernizing old code. I have context I can bring to unpack that statement. I don't think the consultant is going to come to Crafton and unpack that statement for people to more generally understand. What does code modernization mean? I'm not saying what code modernization is going to be for the Crafton Ingram Shopping Center. I'm saying, what is code modern? I've heard about this form-based code and all that. I've learned so much from YouTube, basically. I've learned so much about this. I can't help but imagine that having a little definition on this, just like you guys have been so good in the existing workshops on building a glossary. You know, I mean, my vocabulary has expanded this year for the first time in many years, thanks to you two, right? I think that there's a real benefit in, you know, what does it mean to align code with community vision?
So last meeting, we kind of were talking about how do we drum up support for this? And we talked about maybe doing a workshop on this topic. And then Kirsten shared that same concern that we don't want to necessarily overlap with what the consultant will do.
Absolutely.
So we were thinking maybe issuing either a series of one-pagers or some other form, basically unpacking these statements, kind of like we do in our presentations. And so maybe we take it one by one and we issue 7 separate or 8 or however many, you know, reasons we have in the end.
Yep.
One-pagers, and we say, you know, one of the goals or one of the outcomes could be modernize old code. What does that really mean? And then we like go through it and issue that with graphics and make it something that people want to read. And then do that with each of these and maybe do it every issue 1 a week, you know, for the next few months or something.
And I'm happy to hear everyone's thoughts on this because we have done a number of workshops and we want to continue with those, and we have some ideas for continuing with those, but they also reach a fairly small population. And we thought that by pairing that with some more you know, visual graphics that can be issued on the website, that can be posted on social media, that will get the word out to more people and drum up some excitement. But you know, that is just one way to look at it. I'm not opposed to doing a workshop based on this either. But if we do a workshop, we should be careful to not overstate or, you know, not confuse people by giving them our definitions if perhaps the consultant will come in with a slightly different one. We would want to be careful to not go too far. That doesn't mean we can't do it. So it's you know, I'd like to hear everyone's thoughts on whether you think a workshop to go through this is more useful or something that is like a staged media campaign, social media and images and graphics where we can just give people information in advance that will then be built upon when the consultant starts their process and has to do their own public outreach and issue their own information.
I think your point makes a lot of sense. If we do move forward with a workshop on this topic, we should probably do it before the process ever starts so that it isn't conflicting with the actual timeline of the real project. But I'm totally on board with doing more of a social media, drumming up support for it ahead of time, getting people thinking about maybe wanting to get involved in the steering committee.
What if we start with that, and if we're getting a lot of feedback, then we set up a workshop where we can let people express more of their thoughts and then, you know, have more of an interactive discussion about each of the different points.
Yeah, each of the 7 buckets are good, and they're good topics to have on a slideshow and I'll invite the world's feedback. Have an 8th bucket to put in all the other ideas as well. But really as a general idea to get people interested in kind of thinking, talking, and exercising their thoughts around it. You know, I just looked up the press around Dormont, and it's, you know, people accuse Crafton of antics and having crazy going on. I got news for you. It's all over the world, right? And this lunacy in Dormont is no exception to it, right? You know, for months and months and months, the people that are doing it, the planning commission's working on, everybody's trying to get somewhere with it. And yet there's like 9 people that never show up for anything. And yet when anything change happens, they say, well, I never was informed about it. And yet there was 9,000 ways for you to have been involved, right? So I just like the idea of, if we throw these 8, 7, 8, 9 things into a little open-ended thing, maybe it's just us working on it, but it gives us the transparency that, yeah, it's good. That gives us the ability to kind of say, where were you? We've been talking about this. Literally, you guys have been talking about this since what, 2019 anyway, 2018 maybe, right? 2 years plus.
Yeah, it was 2018.
Finally, we can finally see the end of the tunnel. The lights are on, and there's going to be a handful of people that are going to be like, nobody ever told me about this. What do they do? What are they doing? Like, there's a they.
I've just thrown in a few other links just for the record here, since we're recorded. It's great that that you shared one, but there was, I just didn't want it to show as only negative press, so I put in some.
Yeah, no, it's
other
great.
articles as
It's
well.
great. I think that's a smart thing to do in case anybody ever reads this. That's a good idea.
But I could see some of these being difficult for, some of these are going to be interpreted different ways by different people. Things like the parking minimums, for example, that one is often a hot topic, and we can help smooth over some of those bumps before the process really starts by getting some information out there and letting people, learn what the possibilities are, also what they aren't, because, zoning is not going to mandate that everybody redo their property. That's not how it works. The issue around parking minimums, by a lot of the communities that remove them, they're not simply removing parking minimums doesn't mean that developers can't do the parking that they think is required. It just doesn't force them to do more than they want. So generally, there's a lot of research that we could share and kind of back up what the benefits to some of these things are and what the limitations are, so that people don't get so scared. I think this is a useful thing for us to talk through before we go towards sharing it with, putting out graphics or putting out flyers, because we can think through, from our whole group, how might people interpret it in different ways, and how can we make sure that these graphics or these flyers are clear and providing the information that is going to be helpful for most people.
That's great. Hey, Lydia, as you're working on it, I just moved the negative press down to the end of the list, just in case,
Sure, that's fine.
I'd hate for somebody to start with the negative on it, but I mean,
Yeah.
it just underscores the point of why this is I think it's such a great, it's a great list. It's a great, concept. It just seems like, there's a real opportunity here to, to get the DNA of the greater Crafton community on it, get their fingerprints on it. Nothing drives me more nuts than say, what are they doing? Who the hell are they? There are no they. This is no.
I thought this was a great idea, because as much as the workshops have been nice, not everybody takes the time to participate in those, and it does take some time. And even though they are available on the website afterwards, it still is a fair amount of time to watch through videos. And this is another approach to take some of that same information that we've been talking about, and some of this has even been in some of our workshops, but also create easily digestible flyers or social media images that can be posted in other places and reach more of an audience and get this information out, so that people don't feel blindsided when the process starts. They don't feel like they don't know what this is about.
And what I think what I mean by a workshop is, if we got together, advertised it, right, make it open. If we got together and at the end of 45 minutes, an hour, whatever, we came up with an infographic on why zoning is important for Crafton, and it addressed these 7 things, I think that'd be really freaking cool. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And we defined it out a little bit, and we put a little more. You guys have, you're way smarter than me. So we put a little more jargon to it and put a more detailed document, buried on the planning commission website or whatever. But just a little infographic or a one pager or something that we created that kind of helps people understand, oh, wow. Yeah, I guess that sounds important. That could be a benefit. I can see why the world would want that of us as a community. So what do we want to do here?
Well, I think, and I'm not sure if I'm going the same direction you were, but what I think I'm hearing from you is maybe we do a workshop, but it's more of just a working session to define what these flyers should be, which I think we would have done anyways. I mean,
Right.
we would have continued working on these before we release them. So instead of doing that bit by bit through these planning commission meetings, we do that in a specially advertised session that is open to the public, and they can participate if they want, as we hash out what we think the main ideas or the main concepts to share with the community should be, and how we word those and how we present that, to just give some general guidance for what the zoning is and what it can do and what benefits it can bring.
And explain there. Yep.
So we make that as a open to the public working session.
Yep.
And then the result of that is that we release a series of flyers.
Yep.
I think if we do that, we might still want to work on it a little bit more internally so that we're ready to have a working session where we have all the resources at hand that we might want to have. So
You
people
bet.
aren't bored
Yep.
watching us dig around for things.
We have a straw man ready to go. Yes, I agree. Yes.
So should we set a date for that, or shall we wait until next month and see where we are then if we're ready to set a date?
So the borough of Crafton and their lovely fax number and their address in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The borough of Crafton sends out a newsletter, right? That newsletter went out. They asked us for content. When did they ask us for it? May?
It was, I think May sounds right.
So
Either April or May.
So sometime in August, right, they're going to come knocking for a fall release, right? That's my guess. So if we,
Yeah.
is that too accelerated? You know what I mean? Is that, I
Well-
would love for us to have some sort of a product of this thought, these 7 items, debated, talked about, I don't understand what half of it means, but defined.
So and we may want to circle back to this, but we do have another item on the agenda, which is the eco district. And last month we talked about having another workshop for that. So we didn't get further than that. We were missing a few members. So we want to revisit that today.
Sorry.
And I think between the two, we should talk about the eco district workshop and this idea of having a zoning work session, and then schedule the two and make sure they're not too close together. I think my preference for a zoning, there's no reason it couldn't happen sooner, but if we're expecting the grant to be announced it'll probably be decided in September, I think was the timeline they were following. So we would learn about it in October. We would want this to happen by end of September. And perhaps having it closer to the start of an actual project might be a good idea.
So,
But again, we have an eco district workshop we also wanted to consider, and we'll need to figure
no,
out
I
between
think
the two of them.
it fits. I think what you're suggesting fits, because if I'm hearing you right, then nothing would happen in terms of the code work starting until January, basically.
It could start sooner. They're
No.
ready to start as soon as they have the contract finalized. But they
Okay.
have agreed to hold the price through the end of 2021. So through December
Sure.
31st, they've agreed to hold the price.
You work in the world of business, as do I, and we tend to move faster than the world of state, local government. I would assume that even if this is approved in October, it would still have to go through some sort of procurement channel, and the work may commence by Thanksgiving, likely would probably commence somewhere in December. So if we had something for the December newsletter, it's what my point is. If there was a June newsletter, there'll probably be a September newsletter. I don't think that we would have something prepared, and we'd have to really accelerate this in order to make the one pager, the thing that you're describing, the series of content, to have this ready for September in a newsletter may or may not be possible.
I looked
But
back
December-
last year, they required data or information for the newsletter by August 12th. They were hoping for an August 31st issue date. I can't remember exactly when they sent it out last year. But if we use that same timeline, I don't know if it's possible to have
Yeah,
it
we
done in
can't
2
do
weeks.
it.
I don't think we would be putting flyers in it. We could be advertising the date of an upcoming event if we.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, that's a really good idea. And then, if there were an infographic, I love the infographics. I think people, they spend time with them, because they're pictures and they never see pictures. I just think that if we had we really don't have a deadline on any of this, but if we had a goal of getting something into the December, like some content wise, something into the December newsletter around zoning, and that workshop somewhere between September and November timeframe, that gives us time to do eco districts next, and then what we're talking about here would follow the eco districts. You know what I'm saying?
My suggestion is to give us at least next planning commission meeting to hammer out a little more of the detail
Yeah.
before we. So what if we schedule it after August 25th? Or so our next meeting's the 24th of August. So sometime after the 24th, we
Well,
could have that. Public.
Wouldn't we want to do eco districts sometime before then, or sometime around then?
My thought would probably be to do the eco districts first and then the zoning,
Right,
a little closer to the kickoff of the zoning.
right.
That's a little more straightforward. That's my take.
So I would say that the zoning thing, not August. We can pick a date on September 32nd, but I'm thinking more along the timeline of September 32nd, August 10th, October 10th, something like that for this, and then focus on the eco district for some time, whenever. If you want to do like you said, August 25th, whatever that is, I would do the eco district first and focus on that. But now we look at us. We have a sequence. We have a dance card. We got a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say shit.
Last meeting, we discussed doing the eco district presentation in a Labor Day timeframe. So
Yeah,
I think we can stick to that.
yeah.
Yeah, I think early October, end of September or early October would be a nice time to, especially if we put in some effort before then to make sure that we're really ready to do a workshop where we have some things to show to help, for people to respond to, and then just help us shape it. And then we're ready promptly after that to issue some flyers based on that work session. That would all be coming out early October, just as the project is being announced that it's actually starting. That's a good way to kind of get some momentum going.
I love it. I think it's great. Good job. So we kind of jumped to the eco district thing, but I mean, that's what I do. I hijack conversations and jumble them all up. I'm really good at it. Really good.
Well, let's, just so we go in order here, and I know we had a couple of things we mentioned at the beginning of this meeting. We don't need to set a date yet for something that's that far off. Let's make it through our agenda, and then we can revisit dates once we get through the eco district conversation. We're talking about end of September, early October, and we may settle on dates later in this meeting, or we may settle on one date and then come back to this date next meeting. But make it through our agenda first.
Eric, I kind of captured that above,
Oh, did you?
just in this part D, special public meeting to be advertised to work on the
There
content.
you go.
So in the meantime, do we want to have a brain dump document with these ideas, or do we want to each kind of think about them on our own and then we discuss this at next month's meeting? I know, Lydia, you were really leading this. You put together this initial list and you were going to also run it by Greg.
Right, I'd like to bring Ingram into the fold if we can a bit. They may want to use some of the same content to wrap the project too.
So we have the list here in our minutes from this month's meeting. Do we need to have a shared document where we, add additional ideas, or are we all comfortable just kind of thinking about this on our own and then bringing any additional ideas or any input that we have on this into next?
I'll put this in the shared Ingram Crafton folder so that Ingram also has access to it, and send out a link to everybody.
Okay.
And then I think, yeah, to answer the question directly, I think I'm comfortable letting it sit with everybody thinking about what to add in the next month. Hopefully it'll give me a chance to actually have a phone conversation with Greg, and then
I think we should each think about particular wording or examples that we might like to add to these to bolster the case, as well as think about just reading through them and thinking about how they might be understood differently by different people, and what might we need to clarify.
Great. That's great.
Do we have more comments on this topic for now, or shall we go on to our next agenda item?
I'm good to move on.
I'm good.
So our next two agenda items here are both fairly short. Get this officially on the record. We had a conversation at the beginning of this call, but the Parks Master Plan has been awarded. This is not a planning commission project, but it's worth us knowing about and continuing to talk about. The Parks Master Plan has been awarded, and council did just announce at their meeting this past week who the steering committee members will be. They took applications from members of the community, as well as they looked at assigning members from various commissions and from council. So the members have all been announced this week. I don't know if we need to repeat that, because that was council business and it was covered at the council meeting. The members have been selected, but nothing else has happened yet. There's not been any kickoff yet. There hasn't been any outreach yet. Those members were the steering committee was just appointed this past week. So we can expect that the Parks Master Plan will be kicking off soon, and hopefully the Planning Commission should have heard some update about that for our meeting next month.
Why doesn't the Planning Commission be the steward of the steering committee?
So maybe it is worth repeating. Colton, since you have the list with you, do you want to go ahead and read off who all of the members of the steering committee are?
Yeah, so the appointed members were from council were Mike Crown and Brad Kraus. Planning Commission were Eric and Kirsten. Recreation Board was Jacqueline Lavasser and Elizabeth Palmer. And residents were Greg Wozniak, Kevin Slognick, James Mangan, Gerald Luxbacher, and Liz Glowwork. And those were all the appointed members.
So as far as the Planning Commission taking any kind of stewardship of this process, it's not a project that we're running. We do have a couple of people who are on the steering committee, and we can be sharing regular reports. It is a planning project, so it's worth us discussing and keeping on top of in our Planning Commission meetings. But I'm not sure what kind of stewardship we as a commission would take beyond participation in the steering committee, because we don't want to overshadow the point of the steering committee. It's different from the planning commission for a reason. It's a mixed group from the community.
I'm just saying in terms of facilitating, like helping them move forward. So is the, so what you're suggesting is the steering committee is going to be facilitated by the consultant?
Yes, the consultant is absolutely in charge of facilitating that.
Oh, that's where I was confused. I didn't realize that the consultant will be actually facilitating that. So they'll be reporting on the progress, decisions and what have you back to the council.
Yeah, and it sounded like from when we talked about it briefly in the meeting, in the council meeting, it sounded like the borough manager would also be involved with the committee as well. Though he's not technically listed on there, he'll be reporting back to the necessary, but be it us and council as well. So he did say that he would be involved with that.
So I wasn't involved with the contract or the consultant at all, so I can't speak for the specifics of that. But generally speaking, the steering committee in a situation like this is assembled to work with the consultant. It's a group that's managed by the consultant. It's the community's voice. And they're supposed to also do outreach to the community at large, but the steering committee is kind of the channel that helps guide them towards who they need to be talking to and how they can best organize within the community, and then also gets the message out further. So the steering committee should be, sharing news beyond what the consultant is doing.
That makes all the
if they
sense in
have
the
events
world.
coming up,
Yeah.
the steering committee should be out promoting it.
Yep, that's great.
But if we have any input or any ideas that we'd like to add to this from the planning commission standpoint, we can go ahead and share those. We definitely, as a planning commission, and we do have 2 members of the planning commission who are part of that steering committee, we will be giving regular updates at every planning commission meeting on any updates about the parks plan, and advertising any upcoming public meetings that people should be aware of. We'll make sure that those are being shared in the planning commission meeting as well.
And I think that's a good point. I think that was sort of the purpose of having planning commission and the rec board on there mainly, as opposed to just residents and council or whoever, just picking from random. I think that was my understanding would be that would be kind of the point, of having them on there as well. And I think that's an excellent point.
Cool.
The next item on the agenda, which is also just kind of a check-in and status update, is the Crafton Streetscape Multimodal Grant. I also shared a letter that our borough manager, Doug, had put together. This was emailed in the along with the agenda for tonight. Borough manager has put together a request for additional grant funding for the streetscape project. It's almost $1 million that's being requested. And that is for streetscape improvements. That would be in alignment with the Crafton Ingram Thrive comprehensive plan. Would make the Crafton streetscape, it's already underway. It's already being torn up to do stormwater projects and storm sewer separation project. But as that street gets built back, the goal is to put it back in a better way, with improved streetscaping features and improved sidewalks and improved some curb bump outs and things that would make it a safer street to drive and include some traffic calming. So the borough has put in for a grant to cover some of that streetscaping. So that's not something that we as a planning commission did, but I wanted that on the agenda to acknowledge that that was put in, and it was put in partly with the backing of the Crafton Ingram Thrive comprehensive plan and the planning commission's goals in the vision document to support that plan. We know that there's a possibility, hopefully, Crafton will qualify for an additional grant to improve Crafton Boulevard as it's rebuilt.
Do you know when they hope to announce that? The awarding?
I have no idea when they hope to announce it. I have no idea when it will be awarded. It was that submission just went in last week. So this was a grant that was submitted to the PA Department of Community and Economic Development, that's DCED. It's termed as a multimodal transportation fund grant application, or an MTF, a multimodal transportation fund. I just want to make sure our notes are accurate here. I don't see an amount listed, so we should remove that amount because I may be misremembering. I don't want anything in our notes to be inaccurate. So I want to refer to this document. It does not list the amount that they put in for.
Cool.
But the grant was submitted, or the request for this funding was submitted, and the request, the letter that I shared with our planning commission, specifically stated in the justification for this grant, they wrote that the improvement of this streetscape is consistent with the Crafton Ingram Implementable Comprehensive Plan report, which identifies streetscape and connectivity improvements as a future project. So this is directly coming out of the comprehensive plan and another effort to start, implementing those goals that the community put in place a few years ago. So that's really cool to see that there's another project, another pursuit for funding to make that the goals from that comprehensive plan to turn that into real projects.
It's great.
All right, so then that leads us into our current initiatives, and the first one on there is that Eco District second workshop. Our meeting last month was a joint meeting with Ingram, and we've had several conversations now during those joint meetings that Ingram is interested in pursuing an Eco District with Crafton that would build upon the joint comprehensive plan that we have between Crafton and Ingram. And the idea of an eco district is itself, you can set your own boundaries. It's not limited by municipal boundaries. So it'd be very easy for us to do Crafton Ingram or some segment of it if that's what we wanted to do. So we discussed at last month's, the June meeting, what we can do as next steps to move that forward. We've had one community workshop to just get some information out about the idea of eco districts and get some basic information out on what they are. We've shared with council that we recommend pursuing an eco district. It's a fairly vague recommendation at this point, but we know that council is on board. They think it's a good idea. We don't have any set next steps yet, but council can pursue looking into opportunities for funding to do some eco district planning. And we as a planning commission had also talked about reaching out to a few entities about that. So an update from my end, I spoke with the head of Connect, Lydia Morin, about the idea of Crafton and Ingram doing some eco-district planning. She was very excited about it. She, Connect has been involved in some of the eco-districts, in all of the eco-districts that have been implemented throughout our area. She told me that she was that she had an email ready to get back to me, and she hasn't sent it yet, and she's on vacation right now. So we've made plans to pick up that discussion again when she returns later in August. But she does have some ideas for us that she was prepared to share, and just generally ready to support us in moving forward with that. So I'll follow up with her and try to get more concrete steps. I'm hoping that since Connect has supported some of the other communities that have done eco districts, if they can help us find some funding sources or secure some support us in pursuing grants that would get us funding to help put that effort together.
I think you mentioned this, but are we talking with her about only Crafton's participation in it, or both as a Crafton Ingram joint eco district?
So far we've mentioned that Crafton and Ingram are both interested.
Okay.
And she is more of a resource than a direct funding source. So we don't need to specify boundaries would be. But I did tell her that Crafton and Ingram had been talking about this jointly, and we're both interested. The other thing she mentioned is that Carnegie is also very interested, and that they have had conversations about wanting to do an eco district. So that's something I'd like to put out to the Planning Commission this evening. I haven't reached out to Carnegie yet, but is that something that we would like to, is that a conversation we would like to pursue? They are also our immediate neighbors, and there are a lot of benefits in trying to do trying to join forces and do a larger effort. It would clearly be
part
supported
of our school district.
I think was the subtext I was hearing from Lydia, was that Connect would support that. The downside is that it's a larger area, and it's harder to do an effort like that with a larger area. So
Ingram?
No, Carnegie.
Carnegie is also interested in doing an eco district, so
Nice.
we could do a Crafton Ingram. We could pursue this as a Crafton Ingram initiative that builds upon the joint comprehensive plan that we have, and or we could reach out to Carnegie and look at doing a tri-borough effort.
I like the idea of reaching out to Carnegie too. They're part of our school district. If they're interested in it too, sometimes it's easier to get the motivation to do something if multiple people are bringing you along.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off with my reaction. I couldn't agree more. A lot of the eco district to me is around improving the benefits of the waterway that we have running through our connected communities. And the school district, happens to be shared. But I think that the benefit of focusing on what could be done with the Chartiers Creek waterway, it just seems like an exciting world of opportunity there.
I will just build on that, Eric. I would love for us to get some kind of momentum and funding and interest behind, a massive upgrade to that waterway to make it safer and more sustainable and healthier and not have dead fish in it. And I think that could really be a huge opportunity that could become, a catalyst project that is supported by and created by something like an eco district.
I agree.
So-
I think it definitely can't hurt to reach out to Carnegie as well.
Are you able to do that, Kirsten? Or
I'm definitely able to do that. I just wanted to wait and have a talk with our planning commission first. So I'll reach out to Carnegie, let them know that we are interested, and start a conversation about how the three of us can all proceed together. If they're interested in doing a duo borough or a tri-borough initiative, and then also let Ingram know that we've heard that Carnegie is interested and that we're starting to talk with them too about how we can all work together.
You know, I think it's a great, there's an ancillary benefit to that because Ingram's always dragging her feet. Not that they're doing it intentionally, they're just slow. You know, I think us moving forward, maybe it lights a little fire for them to be a little more participatory in getting stuff done. Sorry, I said shit again.
Well, there's also the possibility that by having Carnegie involved and having, you know, a larger area and 3 boroughs involved, which just sounds good. Like, people like, politicians like
It
things that sound
does.
good, like tri-borough, we might have a better chance getting some funding to have a planning effort funded for this.
So you guys know that I'm a big fan of the waterfront trail, and I think that I've been walking that trail for almost 20 years. And I will say that it's better now. You know, a couple of wood chips make a difference. It's better now than it's been on the Crafton portion, but the Conservancy portion is, it just needs help, man. I mean, that's all there is to it. There's no maintenance. Nobody's doing it. It's just the couple of us that walk it that keep it beat down is what what I'll say. There's been a lot of work put into that trail over the past umpteen years. The reason why I bring that up is, could the Nature Conservancy be a partner in this, right? Since they have such a big piece, they have a huge asset, well, in Sheridan too, right? They have a huge asset in Ingram. They have a giant asset spanning both Roslyn Farms and Crafton, heading into Carnegie. And it just seems like they could use the help. Would they be a fit partner for the eco district? You guys, I don't know shit from say it again, stuff from Shinola about eco districts, but would something like the Chartiers Conservancy be a fit partner for an eco district?
Absolutely. They wouldn't necessarily be
Member,
need to
right?
be the eco district, but they would be, the eco district is bolstered by stakeholders, by landowners, by major players, and there's a particular term they use for it. They're full of their own jargon. There's a particular term for the major stakeholders in the area, but that would be one of them. I mean, it's institutions, it's parks, it's businesses, it's the entities that carry weight in the community, and that would be a good one to reach out to try to include.
I don't know anybody there.
Located within the boundaries, they just have to be, major impactors of the area.
I don't know if you guys have ever been to the pavilion that's up on the top of the trail, right at the end of the trail. There's a giant pavilion out in the middle of the woods. Nobody's been there since 20 years ago. Lots of beer cans, but the reality is, I was trying to ask around, like who I don't even know who the person is. I'd be happy to make a couple of phone calls, but I don't, 1-800 who gives a damn is the only number I have. I just don't know who to call. Does anyone know anything about the organization or who to speak to or anything around that? Cole, is that something maybe you could take the council and ask around a council, or?
Is this in Crafton boundaries?
A good chunk of it is, yeah, a good chunk of it is. So if you go down to Miss Mary's board at the head of the trailhead down by the sled riding hill, right? You'll see the map that's there, and it'll show you where the pavilion is. It'll show you, I guess she put it together. It's brilliant. But it'll show you where it is. Oh yeah.
Mary might know. who to call.
Yeah, look at that, the Crafton Creekside Trail. So yeah, so if you follow the trail, I love it. We're having a virtual field trip here at the Planning Commission tonight.
So you're talking about at the top of the trailhead, or?
Yeah, well, so right at where the sled riding hill is, right? That's where it starts, right? And there's a little bulletin board right there where the green sign is, right? That's where the bulletin board is, right? So you were going in the right direction. I'll show you where the Conservancy land begins and where Crafton ends. So right about, keep going a little further. Okay, so go down to, so you can see a little bit more, so you can see the bend in the screen. There you go, that's good. So you see all the tree line there? See, yeah, you see where it says Chartiers Creek on the top of your screen. The next one up, See there's a little fork in the road? Yep, right there. That's a trail. That continues on. Well, yes, you know the creek trail, but that continues on. You're actually walking the trail right now. You can continue down, and now you see it turns back up here to the left to Bell's Run, and that's all pretty well improved. But wait, there's more. So it crosses over on Bell's Run, and no, you were good where you had it. Go back to where you had it. Crosses over on Bell's Run. So you see the shipping containers at the bottom of your screen by the busway. You see how there's kind of a natural improvement down beneath that along the creek. So from the end of the road at Bell's Run down underneath the busway is the trail. So you see the end of Bell's Run where Xavier Street and Bell's Run are connected there. Yep. So it crosses over the creek right there. And then you can kind of make it out where there's kind of a roadway. Yeah, that's kind of it. So yep, you're now walking on the trail, happy. Go underneath the busway. And now you go up the hill, there you are. And now turn right a little bit more, scroll your screen. And it follows all the way along that area and comes out on Idlewood Road. So right beneath the little parking lot that you have there, right beneath that is where the trail comes out.
But this is Pittsburgh.
That's all Pittsburgh, but
This
it
is back in the
begins.
city.
It begins up there in Crafton.
So we need to get Pittsburgh to be a player in this too.
Great.
So fun when you add so many municipalities. Makes it so much easier, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, from a quick Google search, as of 2006, the Nature Conservancy president was Tim Volk.
Right.
I don't-
2006 is a long time ago.
That's a long time ago. I haven't found anything more recent. There's a chartiersgreenway.net that goes through gives a bunch of information. I'll send this to you in the chat, but
No, I've been all the websites. I don't know if anybody is active or anything. Like I said, it would be great to get it, because what a cool piece of land. If you guys have never walked it, put on your tick spray, but walk that trail, and it's a little, like I said, it's a little primitive, but it's there, and you can follow. You're not going to get lost in the woods, trust me. I take people along it all the time, and they all make it back home intact. But it's a terrific trail, and it's 5 miles up and back from the sled riding hill. What a tremendous asset for Crafton to have. It's a wooded trail that's more than 5 miles long. It's crazy.
I just want to put a couple of things in here for thought. One is that we have a parks plan that's starting up, and Eric, you and I are both on that steering committee, and we have a few residents tonight listening in who are also on that steering committee, and this is something that we need to make sure stays a focus throughout that process. The next thing to mention is that I have been talking with some people in the city about things like the trolley trail and connecting better multimodal connections and bike connections and trail connections through the whole area, because Crafton is not isolated. We're a small community, but if you want to go anywhere, you're leaving the boundary at some point and you want the trail to go somewhere, and this is a good example of that. If you want to continue on that trail, you're going back into the city of Pittsburgh. So I had a recent conversation with a planner from the city of Pittsburgh about how they ignore their boundaries and how some of their neighbors are not thrilled about it. And we had a fairly productive conversation. We were talking specifically about the trolley trail and Crafton Boulevard and how that project borders on the city of Pittsburgh, and the city of Pittsburgh was not willing to participate in the Crafton Boulevard project, even though they're one of the edges of it. But they were open to, we had a good conversation about trying to do better in the future and trying to be better partners, and been paying more attention to their boundaries. And I think this is another great one to bring up to them, because that serves multiple communities. It goes through Pittsburgh. It also connects into Carnegie.
Yeah, it's not a giant leap of faith to connect that to Carnegie. And it's also not a giant leap of faith to connect that trail, because I walk it all the time. If you take a left on Idlewood Road and you walk back underneath the busway, there's another trail that you pick up behind Sakai's office. So if you scroll up just a little bit, and then you can take Crafton Boulevard all the way up to the trolley trail. So right there, right where your cursor is, you'll notice there's a wooded road to your right, just a little bit.
This
Yep.
paper trail,
Yep.
that goes along the busway.
Yeah, it goes along the busway. It goes up to the old Black Street Bridge, and then you can take Crafton Boulevard all the way up to the trolley trail. I like I said, I walk it all the time.
The idea with this street, that Crafton Boulevard, the sewer separation project,
Yes.
and the idea behind that grant that we just discussed earlier, the community has put in for, the borough manager has put in for that multimodal grant. The idea behind all of that was to try to make this section of Crafton Boulevard more walkable. We're tearing it up anyways. Let's put it back
such an
better.
important connector. Yeah,
Up
it
here,
really
you
is.
have your trolley trail. Down right here, you have the school. And
Yep.
across the street from the school is Pittsburgh. And that street is very hard to do traffic calming on or pedestrian crossings on, because one side of it is Pittsburgh. So that is the conversation that I had
Yep.
with some representatives from the city of Pittsburgh. And it was a productive conversation. So I think this other piece down here of the continuation of the trail is another important one to bring to their attention.
Yep.
And to keep talking about through the Parks Master Plan process here at the Planning Commission, and then also, pushing and prodding the city to partner to be a better neighbor. I know I myself have never continued on that trail beyond the baseball fields, because I cannot stand the smell, and I really love creekside trails, and I really want us to do something, probably multiple things, to improve not just the general appearance of it, but the air quality and the odors that we suffer from here.
Well, an update on that. The general. So if you go down to Soto Street, if you see where Ewing is, if you go down to Soto Street and you cut off that section of Meyer Middletown Road, you can pick up the trail there. The Soto Street's really primitive. I mean, it hasn't been paved since 1912. It's old, but it puts you down there, and then you're past the sewer. The sewer at the corner, the Belvedere sewer, up above Meyer Middletown around the corner. That's the one that's the most egregious in terms of the odor.
I don't know. I know we're getting a little off topic now, but there's been a lot of work in the community, not just on the trail, but it's been in the community lately. And we've been doing a lot of construction work, and that has been dredging things up, and that might be making it temporarily more obvious until those projects get finished, and they are supposed to address and improve that smell. But we have some air quality issues here in Crafton, and there are some sensors in our region. There are some sensors around the corner from our community that regularly register some very poor air qualities, among the poorest air qualities in the county. We have some improvements we could make. And a gorgeous creek that we could enjoy more if we did a bit more with it.
Cool.
Well,
Joy
thanks,
to
Eric, for
disrupt
walking
it.
us through the virtual tour there. I think
Yep.
that's a great one to keep in mind, and the Nature Conservancy would definitely be a good organization to reach out to in moving forward with the Eco District. Our discussion last month, and we wanted to get back to this month, was to think about setting up a second workshop. The one that we had in, I think it was April, end of April, was very basic. It was very much just get some introductory information out there to introduce the idea of Eco District and some concepts around it and get people, familiar with what this is. But now that it's been a few months, we wanted to reach out. We wanted to do another event that would build on that and start to gain some more momentum. We don't have a planning process yet. We don't have any funding for an official Eco District process, but it is a community-led process. There's nothing that we have to wait for. There's nothing that we have to have a consultant do, other than the fact that it is a lot of work and there are not, we all have limited time, but there's nothing that doesn't let us get started on our own. So that was the discussion we had last month. Can we have another workshop where we try to do it in person? Try to have an open house or an event in the park or an event, a table at another event that might be already happening. We wanted to revisit this this month when we had more of our planning commission able to attend, but talk about when we think we could have an event and what kind of event are we comfortable having to reintroduce that idea of Eco District and try to talk more directly with people and start to, get some momentum behind it and get people participating and sharing some ideas and making this move forward. So the thought was maybe we could have an event somewhere around early September, somewhere around Labor Day. Perhaps it could be an event that's at the park, or perhaps it could be in conjunction with something else that's already happening where we have a table outside and we just have some information and we have a sign up for people to share, sign up for more information, sign up to follow along, and ways for them to write down some of their ideas, and our planning commission on hand to talk and discuss with people.
Yeah, if we do it at the park, maybe we could reserve one of the shelters or the amphitheater. Have a space with some tables and balloons or something to attract attention.
I know we talked possibly about doing it in conjunction with one of the summer concert series, but I don't think we're going to get it fast
They're
enough.
not into September. I think the last one's in August.
Yeah, we'd have to do this in August, and I don't think we'll make it happen that fast. But what if we aim for Labor Day weekend? Would we want to do that, or are people too busy on Labor Day weekend? Would we want to do a following weekend?
I won't be able to do it Labor Day weekend. I have a wedding.
Or a
in
weekend
New
night.
Jersey.
I mean,
I'll be out of town Labor Day as well.
We're available.
I can do it weekday evenings or other weekends. I just can't do Labor Day weekend.
Would we want to do this on a Saturday and have a daytime event? We're at the park and we have a table and we have, we're out at the park on a weekend, or would we rather do an evening event?
Is there a back to school night that we could tack onto near the school?
Crafton School District doesn't do curriculum nights, back to school nights. They don't do open houses very well. They've really struggled with that. The teachers union has prevented the mandate of even parent teacher conferences. It's pretty bad. But they do have kind of some limited events. Yeah, I don't know. I think that the virtual presence is going to gain a wider audience than the in-person presence. But I'll do whatever you guys think.
We could do virtual again, but we had about 3 people participate last time.
Right.
It wasn't a large audience.
Well, you might have 12 balloons, but you'll still get 3 people in person, maybe less. That's just my take on it. But
My only
how about this? How about we set up a table, right? Give them the old bums rush. We know that it's popular. We know that it's there. Now with the new pool liner, I don't know that they're going to do it, but the doggy in the pool day, right, is wildly popular. And if we wanted to get people in Crafton, that's probably your best bet. You know what I mean? Is if we were able to set up
When is that, the end of August?
our booth, that's at the end of that's the second week, because they close on the holiday weekend. So it's typically the Saturday following. I think one year they did it 2 Saturdays following for whatever reason. But it's after the pool closes, they let the dogs come swim in a pool. And that is wildly attended. And it's, no offense, but it's kind of the right audience, right? The dog owning audience tends to be the people who are a little more interested in taking advantage of an eco district, right? So
I
am
could
I
be
profiling?
wrong.
Am I being a little assumptive?
I don't have a dog, but I am interested in the eco district. Could
Right.
it maybe
Kirsten, it's just a matter of time before you get a dog. Let's face it. You know, you love the walk, you have kids, you'll have a dog. I'm just going to make that prediction.
I
Woman
got
says.
a cat who thinks he's a dog, and it's the best of both worlds.
See, there you go. You already have a dog. See, bring your cat to the paws in the pool day or whatever the heck they call it. It's awesome. It's awesome. If you get a dog that likes water.
So
But like I said, with the new liner, I don't know if they'll do it. But
I
as
don't
far
see it
as,
on the calendar.
huh?
I don't see it on the borough calendar.
Yeah, I was gonna say I could be wrong, and definitely don't quote me on it because I can't recall the source, but I believe that I heard that is not a thing anymore, at least not currently. But I
Oh,
could be wrong about that.
well, I motion that we ask council why the heck that's not a thing, because that's a wildly popular thing. And if there's a reason for it because of the new liner, well, that's somewhat understandable. I think it's BS because that new liner is supposed to be, kid proof, and dogs are no worse than kids. So I'd like to hear what the explanation is, but I motion that we ask council when the doggy pool day is.
Is that a council made decision?
Yeah, it has to be.
Is that not is council in charge of the pool schedule?
I would be under the assumption that it would have been some sort of, not necessarily council, would have been maybe the pool manager or something that decides that. I could be wrong. I just don't see how that would be a council led, but I could be wrong.
Regardless of who makes the decision, I will reach out to borough manager and to the pool management and figure out whether they're doing that. That can be the first step, figure out whether they're doing that. And if so, we can aim to have our event be the same day. But if not, then we'll have to pick another date. And do we generally think that a weekend or a weeknight would be ideal?
I think you've got a better shot at a weeknight.
Yeah,
Personally.
weekends are typically bad for me, but I mean, I could probably make it work depending on when it is.
Would we want to do, we've generally done our workshops on Wednesdays. Would we want to aim to do something on a Wednesday evening at the park with the pavilion? And
yeah, that's fine.
okay.
Are you able to see the borough schedule?
I did have it up, yes. And
Is there
website.
anything happening in September as like a fall
No,
festival or anything?
not really. But what I can probably do, we can aim for early to mid September after Labor Day. And then I'll reach out to some of the various commissions, to the Rec Commission, to the Communications Commission and just see if anyone else has anything that they're planning, because you know, they may have ideas in mind.
That sounds
So
good.
if
Thanks.
we've narrowed it down to, you know, we're aiming for a midweek, perhaps Wednesday the 8th or Wednesday the 15th.
Yeah, both are fine for me.
Then I'll contact the other commissions and see if there's anything that we can connect to. If not, then I'm sure if we pick a date at the park, we can also reach out to like the library to get them on board with doing an outdoor story time, or some similar things from some of the local businesses or organizations to help support giving more reasons for people to be in that park. There was the summer reading event. I don't know if any of you attended that. The library had an event at the end of the school year to kick off summer, to get kids to register in a summer reading program. And the magistrate had hosted a little snow cone stand, and the library was there with some resources and materials and a story time. And someone donated balloons, and it was popular. It's full of people. So we'll see first if we can connect to another event, and then can look into who else might be able to support this. I think the library definitely would do something in the park alongside us.
I think that's a nice idea. Anything to get people there.
I'm going to make sure that's written down so I don't forget. Reach out to pool and other commissions. To see about sharing dates. September 8 or 15. As starting points, and see what in that general time is already scheduled that we might want to connect to. In terms of content, I think so far we're really talking about having, it's probably still going to be fairly just basic information, but hopefully in a more in-person format where we can interact with people a bit more. We didn't have a lot of participation in the last workshop, so I think it's still likely that there are not that many people who are familiar with the idea of eco-district or know much about what that could mean to Crafton. So I think we would be doing something similar to what we did at our last session, but in, you know, hopefully a more interactive and more hands-on way, and perhaps go into more detail. So we could reuse a lot of the materials we had and turn them into some things like flyers and talking points. We had a presentation that listed out a number of different things that the eco-districts can do. And a starting point, some ideas, things that the Planning Commission came up with that were inspiration, that wouldn't necessarily be what the community would decide to move forward on, but ideas for what some of the strategies and goals of an eco-district could be, to illustrate to people what an eco-district could bring to Crafton. So I would see this event continuing that same theme and continuing to be very information-based and just getting out the word, getting people excited and having some conversations with them about what their ideas might be. How do you guys feel about that? Or does anybody have?
I think that makes sense. I just had a note regarding timing. I think maybe a 6 to 7 time frame is maybe good, at least for people with kids. It seems to be like before bedtime, but after dinner.
I think that sounds good.
Yep.
And then what we can do if we have that date, if we have that event, we can take some photos of it and share those afterwards too, so that we have our in-person event, but then we can also put a recap of it on the borough website and on social media to get the word out a little bit more that this has happened, and lead people back to our website where we have the information that we'd previously gathered on this.
I have to step away for a few minutes. I'll be right back. I apologize.
Okay. Well, do we want to keep discussing the eco district idea for now, or do we want to, we've
But we
covered a
make
lot.
that the focus for next
Okay.
meeting.
Yeah, we can ruminate on this and then come back and talk a bit more about what we'd like to add or how we'd like to structure that event. By then I will have gotten responses and we will have narrowed down a date.
The date, yeah. Okay, thanks.
The next item on here is community marketing and promotion. This is a pretty minor one, I think, for tonight. We can come back to it, but we did talk a little bit last month about trying to get back to the idea we had 2 years ago of doing more of a community marketing and community identity, business identity kind of initiative. We had started to go through all the different businesses that were present in Crafton, and we wanted to create a list that was verified, assess all of the businesses, not just the obvious ones, but the home-based businesses and smaller businesses as well, get an updated list of what businesses are available, and then categorize them by type and create some kind of downtown or some kind of Crafton business registry that could have either a nice map put together or even be more interactive and put together on the website if the borough had resources. This was something we talked about 2 years ago. And there was at that time some discussion of maybe having resources to have a summer intern do an interactive map. That kind of got benched, and then through all the changes with COVID over the past year, I'm sure a lot of those businesses have changed. So we talked last month about trying to get that going again. And I reached out to the borough manager to get an updated list. He is following up on it, but we don't have it yet. So we'll hopefully be able to follow up on that next month. What we had previously and what I've asked him to help us procure again was a list of all of the commercial businesses from tax records with redacted information. So we're not asking for anybody's personal or private information, but just the publicly available information about entities that filed as commercial within our boundaries.
Cool.
So once we get that list, we can start divvying it up and verifying which businesses there are, and then we can discuss again, between this group, what we think we have the capacity to take on, what we want to do with it. Do we want to do just a registry? Do we want to can we make some kind of map that indicates businesses by type? We wanted to make it easier for people to find and utilize all of the local businesses we have in Crafton.
I think an interactive map makes sense, and grouping them somehow with headings so that people could go to our website easily and find places to stay or places to eat, places to shop, categorize them that way.
You guys know Marcia Damitz. She's been in town longer than most of us. She had brought forward I'll call it a calendar that Crafton used to do. It's kind of a welcome wagony kind of thing. And this is before the befuddling new madness of the interwebs. But it was a really cool little thing. It was she brought an example of it. It was published each year by the Crafton Borough, I guess. And it was a calendar that highlighted all the local businesses. It's really, it's exactly what we've been describing. But it's already been done, and somebody forgot to do it, and then it became forgotten. So I don't know if there's any benefit to it, but what I would say is, before we race out and make phone calls and sell people advertising space in our free registry, I guess my question would be, is that something that we should be doing as a planning commission? Is that incumbent upon us to be doing?
It would be
what I
voluntary.
worry about is our zeal in doing it it goes on for 1 year and then it just doesn't happen again. You know, is there a way to create this as capacity out of the municipality and not out of the planning commission? You know what I'm saying?
I think that's a really good point. It's not something that we would necessarily be able to maintain indefinitely, but
Right.
it would be a starting point that would get, bring some attention to our local businesses and hopefully help them start also connecting to some resources and some better communication and some better marketing to share amongst themselves. Our neighboring community of Carnegie is a very successful commercial district. They also have a, I'm thinking Chamber of Commerce, and that's not the right term. They have a business.
They have a community
linking on it.
development organization,
They
right?
do. Yes, they do. We do not.
Right.
Um,
And what you're describing is the work of a community development organization, which we don't have. And I worry a little bit about this, and I'm just, sustainability, I think about in all these sorts of things. Like, it's one thing for us to do these workshops. Let's face it, once this group has moved beyond the planning commission, the workshops will never be continued, right? It's something that we're doing to kind of catalyst a moment right now, because the fabric of old Crafton is tearing into the fabric of the new, and we're trying to bridge that and create something that is exciting and a piece for everybody, right? But let's face it, 3 years from now, I don't think there's going to be more workshops, and I worry about something like this, creating a registry, creating that, if it doesn't have that executive, administrative, municipal support to sustain it, then we're just throwing something against the wall.
If I could make a suggestion, what if we're the ones to start it and we request that Borough Council maintain it after we hand it over? I mean, we're going to need to work with the webmaster anyway to get any sort of interactive map put on our website. It's not the work of ours alone, even to begin with. Really, we're just doing the legwork to get the lists created. But we could also have it be set up on the website where it says, click here if you're a new business or if you're an existing business that wants to update your records, and it can just populate some form where they fill out as the business owner, and it notifies the webmaster that something needs to be changed, so that it's not always on somebody to be looking at this yearly.
I mean, Eric, I agree with your point, and it's not necessarily something that should be a planning commission responsibility, but the planning commission's responsibility, really primary responsibility, is to move forward the comprehensive plan. And part of the comprehensive plan is promoting local downtown Main Street growth. And this was one of the ideas that the Planning Commission had, that Lydia had a few years ago, to kickstart that. And there may be other ways to kickstart that, but that it seemed to me to be a pretty good way to kickstart it. We may not be able to keep it up indefinitely, but I think it is in the Planning Commission's purview to start initiatives like this that support those goals of the comprehensive plan. And hopefully then we can establish them and then get them to become supported by the business community themselves and by the borough, by council and by the borough manager and borough staff, to maintain that and turn it into a resource that continues.
I totally understand what you're saying, and I'm not saying that it's a bad idea. Please don't read it that way. I'm just worried about making it a sustainable one, right? I would much rather see the town that I pay taxes to actually, think through the BS, like the header on their letterhead, having a fax number and address in Pittsburgh, right? I'd like for someone to be hired that has half a brain, a modicum of interest in the success of our town, and some guidance in how to accomplish it. I don't think that's too much for me to ask as a taxpayer. So if I were to go on right now to Google Maps, I put in Capretti's. Capretti's is a wonderful hair salon that we have right here in Crafton. And we go on Google Maps, there's lovely information that's here, that's already existent and incumbent upon them as a registered business, because Google's taking care of that for us. I would think it would be a far better resource for us to provide is a Google map with all of the businesses highlighted on that, right? Created by an intern from Carnegie Mellon University, happened to go there, and I think there's bright kids that go there. I think that Pittsburgh University or Carlo or Chatham or anything else would do just fine. But having an intern or someone with some basic skills to get together something like that and to build a resource kit for Crafton businesses to be able to say, geez, I don't know how to manage my Google presence. I don't know how to build a Facebook page. Guess what? Our municipality wants to support you with those sorts of things. I think that would be a far better and more sustainable use of our time than us to call Capretti's and say, would you like to be in our registry, which may or may not be around a year from now. That's all I'm saying is I love the effort and I love the zeal that you guys have. But yeah, go ahead, type in Capretti's into that map and you'll see everything that you need to see about them as a business here in Crafton.
I think the problem is that if you didn't know the name Capretti's, you wouldn't necessarily find it.
That's my point. So you go to Crafton and we embed a Google, I'm pretty familiar with the Google API, that's for sure. You can embed that Google map into our website and you can filter by restaurants, by salons, by types of businesses, and you'll get this sort of display. We don't need to ask people to register. We can use the resources that are already freely available on the web and embed a Google map into our website with very minimal effort from some expertise that we would have to source, right? And I think an intern would be more than sufficient to be able to do that sort of embedded map. But companion to that is, how do we help them have a better, more Crafton-centered presence? I think that would be a resource. Then we're back into that CDC, that Community Development Corporation kind of world, where are we doing that work then, or is that the work that the municipality should be doing? Blah blah blah. That becomes the problem that I have with it is, is this a place that we should be dabbling or not? I worry about that. I don't know. I don't know. Don't want to be a flash in a pan. And I don't mean to offend you two either, because you guys work too hard at this stuff.
No, I mean, this is useful to think through. There is a lot of information out there, and if we can build from databases that exist. Is it doing the same purpose?
I don't know. I just, like I said, there aren't that many businesses in Crafton, let's face it. And we don't have a main street that will ever be equivalent to what Carnegie has, or Coriopolis has, or Dormont has, or wherever, right? We don't have the infrastructure for it. It's not built that way. But there's certain things that we can do, and I just want to make sure that we do things that are really of lasting benefit. So again, sorry to hijack this. I know you guys were talking about something else, but I don't know. I just don't know that cold calling businesses from the Planning Commission is, going to get us very far.
Well, we weren't gonna really cold call them.
You know what I
We're
mean?
gonna use the tax registry and filter it all out, verify addresses, and then if we needed to hear from the businesses directly, we threw out the idea of maybe doing a Savvy Citizen blast to reach businesses that want to be part of the map and have them touch base with us instead of harassing them. But if there's some easy way to embed a Google map that's searchable, we should explore it. I think what's missing is it's not part of the website. There's nothing part of the website that actually highlights our businesses. You have to open up Google Maps separately and do a search for Crafton businesses.
Right.
So if we can connect our actual website that's associated with the borough to have an embedded map somehow, even if we don't create the map ourselves, I'm open to that. Colton, I don't know if you have any comments.
I missed the beginning of this, but yeah, I can't
Eric's
say really.
suggestion essentially was to use why reinvent the wheel? Let's embed a Google map that has everything we need.
Okay, as opposed to what was
Instead
the
of creating in GIS our own searchable database of businesses for the borough that we or someone else then have to maintain on some regular basis when businesses go under or new businesses are added, etc.
Do we have a way to filter out the non-Crafton businesses? Or would we have to create our own like Google map where we add our own highlights and then connect that into the website? See, I know some things about this, but probably not as much as Eric does. So
So we can take the registered business list and update it into a Google map and save it as a layer on our website and update it once a year. It'll take exactly 3 minutes to do. And
that makes sense. Let's do that.
Right?
Let's at least explore doing that. And if we could get that to work nice and seamlessly.
That's what I'm saying. I just, here. Let me just do this. So unrelated, I understand you guys are really smart. Places here, I'm going to take control of your screen share for a second.
Sure.
Right, it took me just did this, took me 3 minutes. So this is a university in Texas. Okay, you see my screen in 3, 2, 1. This is a university in Texas, and this is all of their teachers that they have graduated. And this will show you. Oh, I'll just show you the real version of this. So you can just pop around this map and you can say, oh, look, and this is whatever you want it to say, right? University of Texas, San Antonio, 4 teachers were hired by Fort Bend County, blah, blah, blah. Whatever you want it to say, whatever's in that file, I can put it into this map. And I can update this map, in 32 seconds, any time of the year that you want to give me a new file. And I can actually set it up so wherever that file is, it'll update automatically, right? But it shows something like this, and this could be just boundaried around Crafton. It doesn't have to be San Antonio, Texas, but it literally is that simple. You could have the website, the phone number, and what they do, all from the registry, and it would just be that simple.
I think that looks good. I think perhaps Eric, if you can tell us or put down in an email or in the
Give me a file. Give me a file.
How to structure the file? Like what
I don't care.
How does it need to be set up? Do you need an Excel?
Yeah, give me an Excel file, anything. anything. Give me a
The
PDF. I don't care.
Jordan Tax Service does provide an Excel file
Yeah,
with the redacted information. It's just not all fields are going to be useful for our purposes. So you'll have to extract
that's
out the
okay.
stuff that you need.
We
Yep.
can delete those extra fields. We
You don't need
can,
to do
I
anything.
think Eric's saying just give the native file and he'll code it so that it pulls out what it needs.
I'll have it up. I'll have a link in 5 minutes.
We won't be able to give you like the original source. Jordan Tax Service has to provide redacted information on some
Right.
periodic basis. So that'll
You
be
put that
still
up on the
needing.
website and you put a
Hello.
disclaimer on it with a hello@crafton.com email address saying, if you'd like to update your municipality's information, fill out this form and it'll update the spreadsheet. Honestly, it's that simple.
I think that sounds great. Let's do that. And then,
Right.
I
and if
still
it
think
is linked to the spreadsheet, then if we notice anything that is incorrect or wrong, we can constantly be verifying it and then just update the spreadsheet and it'll update the map.
That's right. And
right, but you'll have a new file that needs to get requested from Jordan Tax every year. Just to
well,
be
and
clear.
that's what I worry about with this. If this is owned by, a couple of people, couple of zealous and motivated people on a planning commission, what happens when we're done? I'm moving in 12 months. You know what I
Well,
mean? You guys are moving on and,
the request for the redacted
whatever.
information comes through the manager to Jordan Tax Service, who is paid by us to maintain files. So there's no issue with getting that file every year. It's just somebody will need to get
It's so
a new
simple, a
file.
caveman can do it. Yes.
And I
the
don't know if,
manager or
I don't know if we need to update it with the Jordan tax information every year either. I mean, that's something we're using as a baseline to get this started,
You
but
do it once and then the businesses, don't see your business, click here, right?
yeah, I mean, it can be something that, they're supposed to self-report if there's a new one, and there's an easy way to do that. I mean, that's part of why we wanted to do this and have a website for it, to make it easy for businesses to figure out how to promote themselves too. There is no such way for them to do that so far. Planning Commission can be in charge of, just generally maintaining it, and if they notice anything that should be on there that's not, they can add it, but they don't have to, it could be like a once every 3 years it gets a full update with the new tax records, or once every 5 years. How often do businesses change here in Crafton?
My point to you is, if it's successful, then just build it properly. I mean, seriously, someone with proper skills can build what I hack at and what I do for people to give them a wow factor. They can build this so it's sustainable and automated, and nobody ever has to touch it or maintain it. I mean, it's literally that simple. And I can do this with GIS, dude. It doesn't have to be Google, but GIS requires a license, and who needs to pay for a license when Google's free?
Yeah, no, I think this is great. If we can do it without using specialized software, that
Right.
makes it easier for the borough to maintain, and for people like us, people on commissions, to participate in maintaining, because the use of GIS is kind of a barrier. You have
Yes.
to have a license. You have to have the know-how.
And I know enough people at Esri that we can probably get free licenses too, but we don't need to go down that path.
the
I really
borough
don't.
has GIS licenses. Just
But like I said,
But it's
if
harder
the
to
borough
share.
use it. I think we've give me the file. Let me show you this, and this might just put a fork in it enough where you're like, hey, this is good. Let's just go with this, And then if people like it, then we can always make it better. But this gets you
Yeah.
something that in 5 minutes you can have a workable, demonstrable product.
I think once we have that map, we have a few other ideas for then creating some other promotion around it. But let's do this first. First, we need to get the redacted records. Those are in progress. Next, we will work with Eric to show us how to do this Google map.
Yep.
That
Hey,
sounds great.
the next piece you have, I'm just going to do it while I have the screen before you go back to the agenda. I dumped this in just so you know. This is the living document. I know it's next on our agenda. I put a link to the living document here as well, but just so you guys all can eyeball it before I go away. These are a couple of things that I put together. I think it's worth, I don't know if it's, again, I don't think it's in our bailiwick to be doing marketing and economic input, but there's some really interesting stuff here. And I just wanted you guys to know that, you know, in 2019, we recorded no change in population. And when you look at this curve, the flat line here for the first time since the 90s or 80s or whatever that says, it's too small for me to read. It's pretty freaking amazing. It's pretty amazing. Our population is finally stabilized. The largest subgroup is now 25 to 34-year-olds. It's the largest subgroup in Crafton, demographic subgroup that we have in Crafton. I think that a lot of people would say that you're full of BS if you said that to them, but that's from the census survey. I'm not
That's
making that up.
surprising. Yeah.
That's pretty impressive, right? However, Crafton is 42% higher than the state average for seniors living alone. So you think that this is going to power the demographic to get this to grow even more as those seniors, no offense, but those seniors will, you know, move on to greener pastures in one way or the other. I think it's pretty fascinating that these two data points here are what the planning and planning commission is all about. The demographic is changing, and it is about to, in the next 10 years, change even greater. I thought that was absolutely fascinating. And if you look at the curve in housing values since 2017, 2016-ish, right, in this town, that is not the national average. I know that the national average is spiked, but that's pretty freaking impressive to see that hockey stick economic growth that we've seen. And then the representation that we have from, you know, if our median household income, according to ACS, has risen from 46 to 52,000, and you look at the representative sample that we have and people responding to the survey that we have, we are definitely getting feedback from the right people. And I will go so far as to say that of the 200-300, whatever it was now, people we've had respond to it, we've had a 5% return on our survey from all families in Crafton. And any marketer that gets a 5% return on any outreach, any marketer gets 5% return is doing a good job. So that's you guys, and I just want to call that out to it because this is your scoreboard. You guys should be taking credit for this because this is the direct output of the good work that you've been doing. So.
And a good survey.
Cool beans.
I mean, you did a good survey.
We'll do more of them. All right. And you guys, did you see the Ingram article this morning or whatever it was this weekend? District Magazine.
I saw a house for sale.
Yeah.
Was featured.
Yeah. I just think that when you talk about things that are good that are here, I'll document this just because if you haven't seen this, it does a really good job of explaining how valuable our little shared valley is.
The amazing thing about that too is that, you know, people do talk about how much housing prices are rising, but if you also look at housing prices in our surrounding communities, it is shocking that house is only what it is.
Right.
That it is being sold for as low as it is compared, right. You know, compared to Pittsburgh in general and our surrounding communities and neighborhoods, we have remarkably low prices.
Yes.
And they are right.
Up. Anyway, sorry to derail it. It's late. I'll stop talking.
You are right though. It's late, and the last things here we can go through quickly. The working version of the vision document is just kind of a regular reminder. I wanted to leave it on there under current initiatives. It is a current initiative. It is a working document that we can continue adding to. We've had a lot of discussions here tonight, so we can come back to that another day. Just to, you know, continuously remind ourselves to add things and discuss things if we have new ideas we'd like to address. The item after that, Eric, I think is a holdover from a suggestion you made that we discuss the structure of the Planning Commission Google Drive folders. I know that you made a new structure for them and we've been using that structure. Meeting minutes and agenda notes, meeting agendas and minutes are each in their own folder by month. I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to say or add to that.
No, I mean, are you guys familiar with it?
Yeah.
Lydia, are you familiar with it?
Yep.
Outside of constantly calling it OneDrive? Man, you Microsoft people.
We're talking about our shared Google Drive
That's
and
probably
the
me.
format of it.
That
I'm
was
not sure what
Kirsten.
you're.
Kirsten calls it OneDrive all the time. It's Google Drive, G Suite, G Drive, whatever.
Can't
It's
keep them
anything but OneDrive. But I find it
She
amusing.
probably uses OneDrive for work. It's just in her mind.
Our Google Drive, yes, Eric has organized our Google Drive. The only addition I would make to that is that for the purposes of submitting our minutes, I have no problem with us taking notes during the meetings into the agenda, but for the purposes of submitting our minutes, it is, I think, better to have a separate, like a recapped, nicely written minutes that we can submit to the borough. So I would like that for us to continue doing that. Rich did put together some cleaned up minutes for the May meeting for me, but we should do that for the June meeting. I actually don't have any notes and Rich isn't here tonight, so I'll have to follow up with him afterwards to see if he took notes at that meeting. Because Eric, you have been doing notes in the agenda, but Rich often does them on the side, and that either way is fine. But I think either way, we need to also be prepared to have a cleaned up version that we can submit to the borough of our minutes that people can understand. Whether it stays in an agenda format or not, it just needs to be reviewed before we submit it to the borough to put on the website to make sure that it's clear for other readers besides ourselves.
Can I move this into the April folder? You guys have an issue with that?
I don't.
All right.
I have meeting minutes from last month written here. So if Rich for some reason doesn't have complete notes, I'm happy to share these, or I can take a picture and send along anyway. From my perspective, the secretary should be finalizing the format, even if we're all helping write them during the meeting. I think it's on the secretary to finalize them. That's the role.
He did that for May, and I assume that he also took notes last month, but I'll follow. He's not able to be here tonight, so I'll follow up with him. And that was just my one note. I do think that if we're taking notes, anytime that or if Rich is not there and we're taking notes, we should be submitting them. But that's really something to just verify with Rich. So I'll follow up with him separately. And I am pretty sure that he did take notes last month. So we're not able to review those tonight, but Lydia, I'll just check in with him, and if we need your notes, then I'll reach out to you.
Sounds good.
So we'll review the June minutes at our next meeting. And we went pretty long, so I think we lost all of our citizens tonight. But if we have anyone no, we have nobody on the line for citizen comments. Okay, well, do we have any other final comments from the group, or shall we go ahead and?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay. All right,
Thanks,
well,
everybody.
great meeting all. Great to see you all.
See ya. Thanks.
Thanks, guys. Bye.